Lyndey Benedict is a jazz singer, performance coach, public speaker, and worship leader with a passion for world travel. She enjoys performing with the Judson Jazz Orchestra, a Nashville-based big band with a unique musical blend of hymns and jazz standards. She also sings with the Metro Big Band on musical mission trips facilitated by a global missions project. For 20 years, Lyndey was a voice and piano instructor, and in 2019 began Music City Showcases. This live music production company provides performance opportunities for all ages through showcases, singing contests, and summer camps. Lyndey also provides performance coaching for those that are preparing for auditions, contests, and pageants. When Lyndey isn't making music, she loves to encourage people through public speaking, especially women's groups. She serves on the worship team at South Point Community Church, south of Nashville, where she lives with her husband Joe, son Joseph, and black lab Darcy Lynn. We have a very special guest with us today on the Music Podcast for Kids, Lyndey Benedict. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So since we are a music podcast for kids, we always like to ask our special guests how they got started with music. Can you tell us how old you were when you started playing music and where your musical journey took you through your growing up years?
Absolutely. I was probably about 8 or 9 when I started piano lessons. Mm-hmm. And I took lessons for 6 or 7 years. I stopped lessons when I reached high school. I guess I got busy with other extracurricular things, but I kept playing all through high school, and even got my first gig playing piano at a small church in my hometown, and been playing in church ever since. But also grew up singing in church choir. I was also in musical theater quite a bit, and pageants, just all sorts of things where I was able to perform. And just, it's in my blood. My family, very musical. My dad has a master's in composition, so wow. I guess it was meant to be.
Yeah, that's neat. And where did you grow up?
Greenville, Alabama. And okay. No, it's not where Forrest Gump is from, but it might as well be. Very small town Southern, and I loved growing up there. It's a great place.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And speaking of the South, you participated in a vocal competition when you lived in Florida, correct?
I did. I lived in Tallahassee for 15 years, and I entered the local X Factor, which was sponsored by Fox, the local Fox station. Right. I ended up winning, and won a all expense paid trip to Dallas, where I competed in the next level. I did not move on in the competition, but it was an amazing and very fun experience where I really learned a lot about who I was as a performer, learned a lot from watching other people. It was an amazing experience.
So can you give us some background? How do you even get started with something like that? Like, I'm sure there's a process application, and what's the process you went through during the competition?
Yeah, you basically enter the competition by filling out a form. I guess I saw it advertised somewhere. It took place at the Tallahassee Little Theater, where representatives of that organization plus other judges were on the judging panel. And it was sponsored and facilitated by the local Fox station. It was an all-day event, so you basically went through rounds of the competition, and it was all a cappella. There were no accompaniment allowed of any form. So that was a little intimidating to have to find a song selection that works a cappella. So I totally stole Bo Bice's idea. I don't know if you guys remember the year Carrie Underwood won American Idol. Okay. The runner-up was a guy from Alabama, Bo Bice. I think that's his name. And of course, me being from Alabama, I really liked Bo. And one night on American Idol, he sang a cappella, which is a huge risk, but it was an amazing performance. I can't even remember the name of the tune, but it worked because I ended up winning that competition. So song choice is huge when it comes to that.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I think that's something that a lot of people maybe don't even realize how important the song that you choose is. And on American Idol and all of that, they would talk about that quite a bit. So I'm sure
Yes.
as that show continued, more people were realizing that, oh, wow, that's actually like a pretty big deal. Like you have to know what works with your voice. And then, like you said, what's going to work a cappella. So,
And did they want you to show something that could really stretch your vocal range, or a real challenging piece, or what criteria did they have for the competition?
It was so long ago, I can't remember exactly, but I remember one of the judges giving me feedback weeks later, because not only did I win the all expense paid trip, I also won a performance slot at a show at the Little Theater several weeks later. And one of the ladies that was a judge was at the show that night, and she said, I really enjoyed your performance because you performed it. You had an entrance, the song you sang with what you were wearing, and you didn't just sing and walk off the stage. Like, it's one thing to sing, it's another thing to perform. So that was what, in her book, scored me higher in that situation. And when you sing a cappella, there's a tendency to get out of key. Mm-hmm. You know, you start in one key and it usually gradually goes flat.
Yeah, sure.
Or you're not in the same key you started. So I think some of that was happening with contestants that you don't realize, and you really have to train your ear and practice to avoid that.
Yeah.
But y'all are asking me some great questions of things I haven't thought about in a long time.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and it is hard to sing a cappella. So, well, we're highlighting jazz music this month on the Music Podcast for Kids, and so jazz, is that like your primary style of vocal music, or?
It is.
Okay.
Yes, I absolutely love jazz. I've always loved it, but haven't performed it, in a professional sense until like 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
So it's a relatively still kind of a new thing for me. I'm becoming, I guess, more of a seasoned vocalist in it. But I grew up singing mostly contemporary Christian, grew up singing church music. I did experiment for a while. I sang with a cover band that did blues, rock, country, pop. It was a great experience to sing with a cover band that did a variety of covers. I do enjoy singing blues as well. But jazz was what I really landed on and have been singing it ever since.
Sweet.
Wow, that's great. And you're the lead singer of a jazz group, a big band jazz group. Can you tell us more about the group and maybe how it got started and where different venues you perform at?
Absolutely. So I am the singer for Judson Jazz Orchestra, which is a church-based jazz orchestra with Judson Baptist Church in Nashville, directed by Kent Kirkland. And I don't know the story of how the band got started exactly. I think it's they were recently formed, like within the past 5 to 7 years. And Camp Kirkland is the director for a variety of orchestras and big bands that perform in Nashville, but also around the world. And Camp lives here in Nashville, so they have an orchestra at Judson Baptist Church. So within that orchestra, there's players who come together in this about a 20-piece big band, and they just love to play. They love jazz, and it's a wonderful mix of jazz standards and hymns with jazz arrangements that we do. And I met Camp through a mission trip that I went on to Guatemala with a different organization. He told me all about the band, said we need a singer. I said, great, I'll do it.
Sign me up. Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome. So do you have a favorite song to perform, maybe with the band, or maybe just, on your own? And could you tell us a little bit Like why that one is your favorite?
Yeah, it's hard to pick one, but
Yeah.
if I had to pick one, I would pick Orange Colored Sky. That song is so fun. It's so classic jazz. It was made famous by Nat King Cole and then Natalie Cole. And of course, many, many artists have recorded it since then. But when I was recording my jazz record not long after I moved to the Nashville area, my first jazz record, I did a celestial theme. The name of the record is Jazz is Heaven. And there's a lot of jazz songs like Fly Me to the Moon, Moonlight Serenade. There's a celestial theme, Stardust, and so Orange Colored Sky fits that. So when I was trying to find songs for my record, I landed on that one. And one day I was driving home from Nashville after something I was doing, and there was this beautiful sunset. And I kid you not, there was like, how does it go? I've sung this song a million times, but the bridge talks about green polka dots and purple stripes. And I kid you not, it looked like a green polka dot. And you don't see a lot of green in the sunset, but I thought, yes, I've got to put this song on the record.
Yeah.
And I've been singing it so much ever since. It's just a lot of fun, the phrasing, and it's a crowd pleaser. And when I do this song in my shows, I sometimes do a little ballroom dance routine where I get a volunteer up on stage. And it creates a fun moment, and I love that too. So
yeah, that's cool.
Oh, that's awesome. And so jazz is a pretty unique style of music. It's not easy to perform. Can you tell us what makes jazz singing different from the other genres you mentioned, blues, and the other genres you sang with the other band? How's it different from those? And how do you prepare as you learn new jazz songs? Are there any particular points that you have to keep in mind as you're learning those?
Yes. So jazz, I've told my piano students and my voice students and my son, who's now an aspiring musician, I've told them through the years, if you can play jazz, you can play anything.
Mm.
In my book, it's the most complicated form of music. It, in terms of instrumentally, it uses complex advanced chords in certain progressions and structures that are complicated.
Yeah.
And in terms of vocal jazz, it goes over a wide range. You might come across, it's not uncommon to come across a jazz song that has an octave and a half range. Wow. That travels from chest mixed head voice and back down again, right, where the melody is a little unpredictable, which I love. The melodies are very colorful. Jazz is very colorful. You'll even see in jazz art a lot of red and bright blue and yellow with a saxophone player. That's very typical. So that's one reason why I love it. Jazz just makes me happy too. I can be in the worst mood, and then if I just turn on some big band music or jazz improvisation, I am instantly happier. It's just fun, wonderful music. So there are lots of other things that make it, challenging.
Yeah.
And complicated, but excuse me, I'm declining a phone call.
Yeah, no worries. So do you do a lot of like scat singing as well? Like, so you're improvising as well?
I do some scatting.
Cool.
I should do more, but more so in a live show. Mm-hmm. In jazz, it's just as much about the band as it is about the singer. And so when I'm doing a one-woman show, if I'm not accompanying myself, I sing with tracks sometimes. Okay. Of course, every time I can get a live band, I do. But sure. Especially these days,
yeah, right.
Places are not necessarily hiring the whole band.
Right.
So there will be these long instrumentals in jazz music. And so to fill that space, a lot of times I'll scat. Yeah. And also on my jazz record, Jazz is Heaven, the title track of that song, I do a lot of scatting on there. It's like a Dixieland jazz tune.
Cool.
So Yeah, that's something that's tricky. It sounds like it might be easy, like, oh, you're just spitting out different syllables, but there's really more of a structure and a technique to it. And honestly, just listening to Ella Fitzgerald recordings is a great way to learn how to scat, and then to just try it. And a voice teacher of mine, she said, memorize, find a great scat on a recording and memorize it, syllable for syllable.
Yeah.
And so I've used those techniques, those suggestions.
Yeah, that's cool. So in addition, yeah, no, I can imagine that would be tough. You'd have to practice a lot to get all those, because it's so intricate, all those, it's weaving in and out of these complex chords. So yeah, it's cool stuff. In addition to being a performer, you are also singing. You do like singing competitions and like a camp coordinator. So can you tell us more about your role with these projects and why you are offering these opportunities to young singers?
I would love to tell you how I got started with that. There's a little backstory to it. I taught voice and piano for 20 years. Now I'm a performance coach with MCS coaching, musicianship, connection to audience, and song choice.
Cool.
So those three things coming together to coach performers for an audition, a contest. I'm auditioning for a lead role, or maybe you're just in a show and you need some coaching to get you ready for that show. As I said earlier, it's so much more than just singing.
Right.
In fact, I like to tell people about a company that I took lessons with called Singing Success. And their definition of singing is acting on pitch. So it's equally performance and singing.
Right.
And so after I retired from teaching voice and piano after 20 years, I took a little break and thought, well, what's next? Is it music, or am I going to do something totally different? Well, I landed on music again, but it was an opportunity that fell in my lap to coordinate a student jazz showcase at Rudy's Jazz Room in Nashville. And I had to fill 3 hours of music. And my big band was like, sure, we'll do it. But I was still like, 3 hours. I'm not sure we really want to do that. So what if I called some of my former students and some of my friends that are either pro or semi-pro in Nashville? Long story short, 5 of my former students signed up for the show. They actually paid a fee to me to do it, because then I coached them for it. Because I thought it's not enough just to say, hey, yeah, I want to sing, and then show up. No, right. There's got to be some preparation for this. So they basically paid for coaching that I provided leading up to the show. And then I brought in friends, as I mentioned, and basically Music City Showcases was born because I thought, wow, I could coordinate and produce these live music shows that feature students and or pros from one extreme to the other in a variety of Nashville venues. And I've been doing that now for 1.5 years. And in an effort to grow that business, I started Music City Superstar, which is a singing contest that has prizes and Nashville industry judges, and it starts online, but there's also a live component to it.
Right.
And it's also a fundraiser for a worthy cause. It's a really great event. We just wrapped up Music City Superstar 2021. And I also do Music City Summer Camp.
Cool.
And Bruce's daughter is coming
She's going to be a
summer,
big sister this year.
That's awesome.
And Bruce is coming down too and going to volunteer. I'm so pumped about that. Awesome. But I have anywhere from like 12 to 15 kids. It's kind of a smaller, intimate experience here at my home called Woodsong Farm, south of Nashville. And we hang out here at the farm all week, singing and dancing and performing. And I coach all of these kids. They make new friends. They do crafts even. We play games, we do parties, but it is a very serious music experience as well, because we're doing all of this coaching and practicing leading up to a big showcase at the end of the week. I also take them into a recording studio, legit recording studio in Nashville, which they love. And then I usually try to find somewhere for them to sing in a Nashville area venue as well. Wow. And I've had kids that have been come to this camp almost every year, and the new kids come every year. So Music City Summer Camp. I've even got a little bit of lodging for out of town campers. So if some of you kids are watching this and you think, oh, a summer camp near Nashville, mom, can I go?
Yeah.
I would love to provide that lodging for you. It's a fun, safe environment. So anyway, that's what I do. And then the coaching, MCS coaching, everything is, you see the pattern here, MCS.
Yep. That's great.
Start summer camp, showcases, and the coaching as well.
Super whole package. That's awesome. So as we wrap up here, we'd like to ask you to offer maybe some advice or a bit of wisdom to our audience as they begin exploring the world of music. So what could you say to our audience directly?
Yes, to narrow that down,